From a Russian tank that launches its turret into orbit like a SpaceX rocket, to a Western tank that has been obliterated by pathetically assembled FPV drones. Here are 20 minutes of every main battle tank used in the Russia-Ukraine war, starting with the T-55. In early 23, Russia started pulling tanks out of deep storage bases, including a repair depot all the way out in the Far East. These were T-55s. Some of them were the upgraded versions, the T-55AM and the T-55AMV. Hundreds of them went west. And guess what? Nobody in Moscow was expecting these things to fight other tanks, because they can't. So Russian commanders gave the T-55 3 jobs instead, and none of them look like tank warfare. 1. Artillery. The tank parks behind the line, elevates the gun, and fires at a grid reference it will never actually see. 2. A bunker. The tank gets dug into the dirt until only the turret is showing, and then it stays there. And 3, and this is the one I still cannot get over, they pack the hull with high explosives, the crew climbs out, and the tank gets driven into a Ukrainian position by remote control. A 60-year-old main battle tank turned into a car bomb with tracks. More recently, some of them have been fitted with massive metal sheets welded over the entire vehicle. Those are the turtle tanks you have seen in the footage. And look, that metal will stop a drone. It does absolutely nothing against a guided anti-tank missile because vintage steel armor offers zero protection against precision weaponry. It also leaves the crew half blind. Oryx has visually confirmed 27 T-54 and T-55 losses on the Russian side, heavily damaged or abandoned in the field. It is a cheap, expendable fire support platform, and every one of them sitting in a hole is a modern tank that Russia gets to save for an offensive that actually matters. T-62. The T-62 actually came back first, in the mid-2022. That is only a few months into the invasion, and I want you to sit with that for a second, because it tells you how fast Russia burned through its frontline armor. They brought back the Cold War variants, the T-62M and the T-62MV, plus an emergency modernization they rushed out in 2022. Hundreds of them committed to active combat, and the role is basically the same as the T-55, just one step closer to the shooting. Mobile assault guns, long-range indirect fire, static defensive fortifications. This is also the tank where the turtle design was invented, before the idea spread to everything else in the Russian inventory. They encased T-62 hulls in heavy metal shelters, specifically to survive explosive drones. Now the tanks themselves are relics, sluggish turret rotation, outdated optics. Against a modern anti-armor weapon or a guided artillery strike, they are dead. But the main gun still fires high explosive rounds, and against infantry sitting in a soft position, a high explosive round from a T-62 kills you exactly as dead as one from a T-90. Beside all that, Oryx has documented 346 T-62 losses, destroyed, abandoned, or captured by Ukrainian forces. T-72. Now let's shift our focus to the tank that is actually fighting this war. The T-72 is the absolute backbone of the Russian armored corps, thousands of them committed. The T-72B, the 1989 model, the modernized T-72B3, and the T-72B3M. When you watch drone footage of a Russian assault, this is the tank in the video. It is the workhorse of every Russian offensive maneuver, and it has taken the brunt of the high-intensity fighting. And it has a design flaw that has been killing crews for 4 straight years. The T-72 carries its ammunition in an automatic carousel that sits directly underneath the turret, on the floor of the crew compartment. Back in the 60s, that was clever engineering. It made the tank short, it made it light, and it meant you only needed 3 men instead of 4. It also means that anything which punches through the armor lands directly in the ammunition. That is why so many of these clips end the same way. A flash, and then the turret comes off. 20 tons of steel goes straight up in the air and lands upside down in a field 40 meters away. Nobody inside lives through that. Russian engineers have tried. They have welded overhead screens across the roofs. They have layered on advanced reactive armor. They have started sticking dynamic reactive armor bricks on top of the turret roof. And that stuff helps against a drone dropping a grenade. But none of it touches the carousel, because the carousel is not a bolt-on problem. It is the shape of the tank. So far, Oryx has visually verified approximately 2,500 Russian T-72 losses. Destroyed, heavily damaged, abandoned on the battlefield, or captured by Ukrainian forces. T-80. The T-80 was supposed to be the good one. This is Russia's elite high-mobility armor, and the thing that makes it different is the engine. It runs a gas turbine instead of a diesel, so it starts instantly in the cold. It accelerates like nothing else its size, and it moves through frozen ground and mud that bogs down everything else. Crews love driving it. The people who have to supply it do not love it at all, because a gas turbine drinks fuel at a rate that chains the tank to its logistics tail, and it is a complicated engine to maintain in a field workshop. Hundreds of them went into the front: the classic T-80BV, the legacy T-80U, and the heavily modernized T-80BVM. The tank was used hardest in the opening stage of the invasion, in those long columns, and it faced disastrous results. Ill-prepared units got ambushed in the northern sector and around Kharkiv, and a lot of those tanks never came home. Some got hit, some ran dry and got abandoned completely intact, which is how Ukraine ended up driving Russian T-80s. And the T-80 carries the exact same carousel as the T-72. Same penetration, same cook-off, same turret in the air. Oryx has confirmed the loss of over 1,200 Russian T-80s. T-90. The T-90 family is the top of Russia's operational capability. You have got the legacy T-90A, the T-90S variants that were originally built for export and got redirected into the war, and then the T-90M. The T-90M is the one the Kremlin heralded as the most capable tank in active service. Modernized turret, advanced dynamic reactive armor, automated fire control, and it has been dying on camera since 2022. It has been knocked out by Ukrainian infantry fighting vehicles. It has been killed by precision drone strikes. And there is a specific failure pattern that keeps repeating. In a close-range skirmish, the complex automated systems get disabled, and once those are down, the tank is sitting there defenseless, waiting for the drone to finish the job. The T-90's advantage over a T-55 is not really its armor. It is its sensors and its fire control, and sensors live on the outside of the vehicle, exposed. The heavy reliance on vulnerable optical trackers has exposed a deep flaw in Russia's most advanced platform. Break the optics, and the best tank in the Russian army becomes a blind box with a gun nobody can aim. Open sources say Russia has lost at least 213 T-90s since the escalation. And of that total, exactly 100 are the advanced T-90, verified as destroyed, abandoned, or captured. That is a very large share of everything Russia has managed to build, and it has shattered the myth that this tank was ever invulnerable. T-64 from Ukraine. The T-64 was designed and built in Kharkiv. Soviet design, Ukrainian factory, and that is the foundation of the entire Ukrainian armored force. Russia never favored the T-64 and went with other designs. Ukraine inherited the tanks, and more importantly, inherited the plant and the people who know how to rebuild them. So Ukraine took hundreds of its T-64BV and modernized them into the T-64BM, and then the newer T-64BM2 Bulat, upgraded multi-fuel diesel engines, computerized fire control, heavy integration of advanced dynamic explosive reactive armor, and it worked. Those upgrades turned a Cold War platform into a defensive bulwark that blunted Russian mechanized pushes in the north. Ukrainian crews rate it very highly, specifically for gun accuracy and for survivability. But the high intensity of this war has taken a brutal toll on Ukraine's primary fleet. Oryx has visually confirmed over 700 losses across all T-64 variants. Of that total, 27 are the upgraded T-64BM Bulat, and 4 are the T-64BM2, ET-9120 from Poland. The donations for this tank started in early 23, and it is the smartest one. Poland sent approximately 60 PT-91 Twardys, delivered in batches. Now the Twardy traces its lineage straight back to Soviet tank design, and that is exactly why it worked so well. Ukrainian crews needed almost no retraining. The ammunition was already in the supply chain. The mechanics already knew the engine layout. It slotted straight into a system that already existed, which is the single biggest thing that separates a useful donation from a museum piece. And Poland did not just hand over old stock. The Twardy is a serious upgrade over legacy Soviet T-72 M1 armor. Polish-developed fire control system, upgraded diesel engine, distinctive domestic explosive reactive armor panels that meaningfully improve survivability against modern anti-tank projectiles. They went primarily to newly formed mechanized units, including the 22nd Mechanized Brigade, and they were used hard. They saw intense combat and played a crucial role in the 2024 Kursk offensive, which is to say, Polish rebuilt Soviet tanks crossed the border and fought inside Russia. Oryx has confirmed 12 PT-91 Twardy losses, and Ukrainian crews have been openly positive about this tank, specifically the digital electronics and the engine performance. M84 Sniper from Croatia. Croatia's contribution took a much longer route to get there. Under a German-backed ring exchange finalized in late 24, Croatia transferred 30 M84A4s to Ukraine and received newer equipment in return. The M84 is a Yugoslav-era tank, and underneath it is another descendant of the Soviet design. Croatia modernized theirs domestically into a variant called the Sniper, and the name is the whole point. The Sniper runs a high-performance computerized fire control system, advanced meteorological sensors that feed the ballistic solution, and superior stabilization. It was built to hit what it is aiming at long range, on the first shot. These made their official battlefield debut in late 25 with the newly mechanized 141st Brigade in active defensive sectors. And before they went anywhere near the front, Ukraine fitted them with dynamic explosive reactive armor modules and protective metal cages to deal with attack drones, which tells you exactly what the threat model looks like now. So far, Oryx has documented a single verified loss, confirmed destroyed in action. Now 30 tanks do not move a front line, and I am not going to tell you it does. But the Croatian tanks are valued for mechanical reliability and for their optical sights, and that fire control system genuinely outperforms legacy Soviet gear at target acquisition. Leopard 1 from Germany. Now let's shift our focus to the Western armor, because this is where the story gets uncomfortable. The first one to arrive is the Leopard 1, specifically the modernized Leopard 1A5. A coalition of Germany, Denmark, and the Netherlands pledged them, and over 120 have been delivered since 23. The gun is so good. 105mm rifled main gun with a computerized fire control system, and it is accurate. The armor is the problem. It is steel, and it is pathetically thin. The Leopard 1 was designed before the era of modern tandem warheads, back when the assumption was that no armor was going to stop the next generation of anti-tank weapons anyway. So, you may as well build something fast. The tank was designed not to get hit, and on this battlefield, everything gets hit. Ukrainian commanders worked that out immediately and never used the Leopard 1 for direct frontline assaults. Instead, they run it as a mobile, long-range fire support platform. It sits back, puts accurate rounds into fortifications from a concealed position, and displaces. Basically a sniper with tracks. Oryx has still documented 37 Leopard 1A5 losses on the Ukrainian side. Leopard 2 from Germany. The Leopard 2 is the tank Ukraine spent months publicly begging for, and it arrived with enormous expectations attached, pledged in early 23 by a broad coalition of European allies. Over 40 of the older Leopard 2A4 variants, and 21 of the much more advanced Leopard 2A6. This is the platform that started Ukraine's transition to Western standard armor. Powerful 120mm smoothbore gun, superior composite protection, and a crew layout built around the idea that the crew is the expensive part of the tank. They went into the 2023 counteroffensive, and in long-range gunnery, they performed exceptionally well. But the counteroffensive ran into dense minefields covered by attack drones, and the casualty rate was high. Open sources have verified 41 total Ukrainian Leopard 2 losses, 28 of the 2A4 and 13 of the 2A6. But now look at how they were lost, because this is the most important detail. The Leopard 2 stores its ammunition behind blast doors, with blowout panels in the roof above it. When that ammunition goes up, the explosion vents upward and outward, away from the crew compartment. And even when these tanks were severely damaged, those blowout compartments protected the crews from catastrophic explosion. That is the actual gap between Soviet and Western armor design. And it is not thickness. It is what happens in the 2 seconds after penetration. The Leopard 2 also proved something less comfortable, which is that you cannot conduct a mechanized breakthrough against deeply entrenched lines without air superiority. Challenger 2 from Britain. The British Challenger 2 is the rarest and most specialized tank in Ukraine. Only 14 were delivered to the elite 82nd Air Assault Brigade. This thing is a 75-ton classified Dorchester armored sniper rifle with a rifled 120mm gun that fires high-explosive squash head rounds, which are devastating against fortifications. In September 2023, the first Challenger 2 ever lost to enemy fire was destroyed near Robotyne. It hit a mine, got immobilized, and a Cornet missile finished it off with a turret fire that eventually detached the whole top. By early 2026, at least 4 to 5 Challenger 2s were confirmed destroyed or seriously damaged. Most losses came from Lancet drones and FPV strikes hitting the rear where the armor is thinner. One crew member was killed when a drone bypassed the main armor and struck the commander's cupola. There are 2 real problems. The first is weight. 62 tons is a lot of tank, and Ukraine's soft, muddy ground does not forgive it, so maneuverability has been an issue. The second is parts. The Challenger is a logistical unicorn. 14 tanks means bespoke supply chains and unique ammunition that doesn't work with other NATO systems. Many are held in reserve or used for propaganda. As of early 2026, only about half are considered combat-ready. Stridsvagn 122 from Sweden. This is a Leopard 2 variant on steroids. The Stridsvagn is Sweden's heavily upgraded version of the German Leopard 2A5, and it is widely regarded as one of the best protected main battle tanks anywhere. Additional composite armor modules on the hull front, and, unusually for its generation, on the turret roof as well. It has reinforced top armor and improved hatches designed specifically to survive artillery and drone strikes from above. The exact threats that have decimated the Abrams and T-72 fleets barely scratch this thing. The 62-ton frame balances firepower and mobility better than the Abrams, and the advanced fire control system can track and engage multiple targets without manual re-aiming. They were assigned to the 21st Mechanized Brigade and used to anchor the Kreminna Forest sector, which has been one of the hardest places on this entire front for 2 years running. Relentless bombardment, drone swarms. By mid-2026, 10 out of the 10 122s had been hit, damaged, or abandoned at some point. But here's the thing, they came back. The survival rate is so high that damaged tanks get recovered, repaired, and returned to the fight. M1 Abrams from the US. The United States delivered 31 M1A1 variants to Ukraine in late 2023, and it was supposed to be a game changer. Bad news, it wasn't. By June 2025, 87% of them were gone. Only 4 of the original 31 were still in active service. The Abrams ran headfirst into a war it was never designed to fight. No air superiority, no engineer support, just drones and mines everywhere. The Abrams got shredded from above above and behind. FPV drones and Lancet loitering munitions targeted the engine compartment and ammo racks where the armor is weakest. The blowout panels did their job and saved crews, but the tanks themselves were mission-killed and abandoned. Russian minefields pinned them in place, and Kornet missiles finished them off. The 47th Mechanized Brigade did everything they could, but combined arms doctrine doesn't work when you don't have combined arms. Logistics made everything worse. The AGT 1500 turbine engine is a fuel-guzzling monster that requires constant maintenance and a supply chain Ukraine doesn't have. In December 2024, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan admitted the tanks hadn't delivered the expected impact because units were understaffed and the platform wasn't useful in this kind of attritional fight. Australia sent 49 more Abrams in late 2025, bringing the total to 80. But these were thoroughly worn out after decades of Australian service. Ukraine fitted them with cope cages, electronic warfare gear, and $107 million worth of top attack protection kits. The Abrams is a brilliant tank, but it's a Cold War relic trying to survive in a war defined by cheap drones. This is why U.S. Army started designing the M1 E3, a complete redesign for modern warfare. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.